What's good, YouTube? It's your boy DJ LiftOFF with the JP Way, and you don't want to miss this flight. As you can see, we're going to be hopping right into this video, which is going to be my top Serato settings that help me DJ in the best workflow possible. Now let's go ahead and open up the settings in the top right corner of Serato DJ Pro. So first we have the DJ Preferences tab and our control preferences. Now I'm just going to be going through each of these one by one and explaining why I use it. So the first one, as you can see, is Playback Keys Use Shift. Now I particularly like to use this because anytime that you use a keyboard shortcut on your laptop, so for instance, to rewind a track on your left or right deck, you can use A or Q on your keyboard. And for instance, I'm going to go ahead and actually deactivate this right now, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Now in the past, I've mistakenly grazed over the A or Q key and I've rewinded the track in the middle of a party. This is something that you do not want to happen. So if you go ahead and enable Playback Keys Use Shift, you have to hold Shift before you use any of the keyboard shortcuts. So I just find that as a very easy way to make sure that you don't make any mistakes. Of course, you want to enable your hot cues so you can go to any part of the song that you choose. Just in the case, if you don't know what hot cues are, you can pretty much start your song at any point that you would like. Next is track end warning. This is something that you can have turned on if you're not always paying close attention to when your tracks are ending. I usually actually have this turned off, but I have it turned on for this video as it is one of those helpful things to just have on, and there's technically no reason to not have it on, if that makes sense. At the bottom, we have show beat jump controls. This is something that I don't typically use. However, it is something good to have enabled. So as you can see there, when that box is checked, you have this extra row right here, which is representing 1 beat, 2 beats, 4 beats, and 8 beats. So if I go ahead and play this song, see, you look there, I still got this shit going backwards. So if we go ahead and use this beat jump, it'll actually jump up as many beats as you want it to. So that was 8 beats, we can go 1 beat. So that'll all depend on what you would like to beat jump to. That's a very helpful thing that you can use if that's something that you're into. Again, I personally don't typically use that, but it is something that I could definitely see DJs finding helpful and useful. Moving to the right, I've always left this checked. Use auto gain, which is going to set your auto gain to 92 decibels, which is recommended by Serato. I've never changed that, always found that to work well. Now, right below that, we have our start and stop time for breaking. Now, what I like to do is change the stop time just to a little bit above this 9 o'clock. Essentially, if I left this at 0 and didn't turn it up at all, if I have a song playing and I hit stop, it's gonna stop pretty quickly. And that's just not very natural, especially for a turntable to stop. For controllers, it is kind of natural for it just to stop that quickly, but you can still change this on controllers as well. So you'll hear the difference. I like to put mine just a little bit over 9 o'clock, and it just essentially stops the track a little bit slower, and it just sounds a lot more natural. Just gives it that real turntable feel. For the start time, I like to leave that alone because I want my track to start as quickly as possible. If you were to bring this up, you'll see that your track will actually start a little bit slower. So if I go ahead and play now. So I actually like to leave my start time right at 0, so it starts as quickly as possible. Now, right below that, you have on song load. I like to leave mine on play from first cue point, essentially because if you're loading a song that has an intro or anything in the beginning that's unwanted, you could just skip right by that and not have to actually scrub forward to get to where you want to start. For example, I'm just gonna pull up Let Me Love You by Mario. And this is a good example of, you see this, just this little bit of intro, whatever this is, I don't like using it. So if I go ahead and press load, it'll load right to that first cue point and it'll be right on that first downbeat, which is perfect, versus I'll be a little bit off if I was to start it right here and leave it on play from start opposed to play from first cue point. So that's just like a very generic reason to leave it on first cue point. You might also have a song that you want to start right at the chorus or a verse, and instead of having to scrub forward or remember which cue point you set, it's easy to just have it set to that first cue point. We're going to go ahead and skip over recording. I like to leave my sync mode on simple sync. I don't see a reason to use smart sync. I actually don't use sync too much unless I'm doing very, very quick transitions where I'm trying to jump from song to song, which I'll actually show you an example of in just a moment. So now if we go over to sync preferences, I have these first two checked. Snap to beat grid, I always like to have that checked because when you go ahead and analyze your files, Serato is going to create a beat grid for your file. And sometimes the beat grid can be off just a little bit, but we're not going to worry about that right now. That's a different video of pretty much how to edit your beat grids, but your sync is going to follow that beat grid. So if your beat grid is set up right, most of the time it is set up right when you analyze your files, sync is going to coordinate with the beat grid. Secondly, more importantly, maintain sync on track load. This is very important to have checked because essentially if you're playing a song, just like I said, if I'm doing a very, very quick transition. So for example, if I have a song on this end, if I have a song on my left deck and a song on my right deck, and I want to transition out of one song, let's say I use an echo or a quick fade out, I want to be able to load my next track and start it without having to move my fader so the tempos are the exact same. So right now I'm going to go ahead and sync these two tracks up. I'm going to drop this a little bit and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So let's say I have these two songs playing and I want to do a really quick transition. It's going to help to have that sync automatically on. So as you can see there, when I went to my shoulder lean instrumental, it still had the sync on 79, or the BPM on 79, opposed to if I had this actually turned off. Now, if I sync up those first two tracks again, and I go ahead and play both of them. If I go ahead and fade out of this one, and I load this one, you can see it's on BPM 71. So then I would actually have to slide up my tempo fader and then start the track, which is just taking unnecessary time to do that. So that's the beautiful thing about sync. I know some people don't like it, some people do, but for me, I love it because it allows me to make quick transitions very easily. Next, we're gonna go over to the audio tab. Now, if you have a fast computer with fast processing speed, you have good RAM, just a good computer in general, you can definitely lower your buffer size or your latency to 2. Mine actually works pretty fine at 5 as well, or 2. And essentially, latency just is how quickly your hardware is going to respond to the things you do. So if you're clicking buttons or you're scratching or whatever you may be doing, your hardware is going to react much faster the lower you drop your latency. However, the lower you drop it, if you don't have a very fast computer, it can slow down the performance of your hardware or your software or whatever may have you. So you definitely want to make sure that if you're going to drop this latency down, that your computer can support it. Now moving over to library and display, I don't really change too much in here. If anything, I think everything in here is pretty default. Show iTunes library. I definitely use iTunes to organize my songs, so I like to have my iTunes library showing up in Serato. Outside of that, I can't remember anything that I've changed other than maybe having 2 decimal places. As of recently, I've actually had it on 1 decimal place, just because I actually forgot to set it to 2 decimal places. But setting it to 2 does give you like that extra little bit of perfection as far as if you're trying to sync 2 tracks perfectly together. If you're writing your tempo faders, you can definitely get it so it's literally perfectly on beat. So it gives you that extra decimal place here. So that's something that some DJs use, some don't. I don't think it's a super huge thing whether you use 1 or 2 decimal places, but I usually do have mine set to 2. Lastly, we're going to move over to the mixer section, and the most important thing to have set in here is your crossfader set all the way to fast if you are going to be scratching. Now, the S9 mixer does have an actual curve on the actual front of the mixer, so I can actually set this on my actual mixer. But if you have a controller or you don't have that curve set on your controller, You can go ahead and change that in here. The reason for having your crossfader curve set that way is because when you're doing something, let's say a chirp scratch, when you're all the way to the left, or if you have a song that's playing on the right deck and your crossfader is all the way to the left, the song will not play at all. But as soon as you bounce it off of that edge of the mixer, or your crossfader comes off the edge here, you'll have your track playing at full volume. So it's very essential to have it set like this when you're scratching, because if you don't have it set like that, when you come over about right here, your song will be very low in volume, and you don't want it to be very low in volume. You want it to be at full volume. You don't want this to be like sort of a fader as far as volume. You just want it to be cutting out your song and then bringing the song back in at full volume. So those are all of my Serato settings that I personally use, that I find works best for my DJ workflow. If you all would like to see a more in-depth video about like just general Serato software, like just the main interface, definitely drop a comment in the comment section and let me know. Other than that, I hope this was helpful, and until next time, I'll catch you.